Hi Rachel, it's so nice to have you here for International Women's Day on the Property Marketing Lounge. Thank you so much for agreeing to join us today. Tell us a bit more about you and your coaching business.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. I am a women's coach, so I work with women to help them overcome overwhelm and avoid burnout. And basically, as my company name might suggest, I want to help them bring more balance and joy into their lives. So I'll do that. Often it will be around helping them to understand their needs and ensure that they meet them, recognize what's been driving them in life, and whether that's what they want them to be, what they want to be driven by. Also, I'll work around limiting beliefs, inevitably grow confidence, help them to get better at boundary setting, and really carve out a plan which helps them to achieve what they want in life, but still getting balance and joy along the way. Because I think sometimes we can veer off in all of these directions. I want to achieve this and I want to achieve this, but actually, if the balance and joy isn't there along the way, then it can be quite painful.
Absolutely. And what kind of made you want to focus your skills on particularly supporting women?
I think, whilst today's workplaces, most of them have got policies to equalise, there's still quite a lot of masculine culture in the way that we work. So, for example, our standard 5-day week is set around the assumption that workers can give the same type and level of energy each day. And that works well for the masculine because the masculine naturally aligns to the circadian rhythm, but women have an entirely different hormonal rhythm in their bodies that also influences the energy that we have for different tasks at different times throughout our month. So quite often women will find that they are unknowingly working against that natural rhythm in order to certainly compete for promotion or maybe even to keep up. And that uses testosterone. We only have 1/13 of the testosterone that men have. So when we run out, we use adrenaline. And of course, adrenaline isn't intended to be used all of the time. It's supposed to be used, when we're in a situation of danger. When we use it all the time, we could end up with adrenal fatigue and ultimately burnout. And then, of course, you add on all the other stuff that they might do at home, mumming, and the mental load that comes with that as well. And, I find that a lot of women that I meet are really, really close to burnout or already burnt out. So that made, discovering this, I discovered all of this with a company called One of Many. And it really made a massive difference for me in the way that I manage my energy. And I was already a coach, so I was like, I have to be able to share this with my clients. So I trained up to become a women's coach with them, and that's enabled me now to be a licensed coach with them and use that with my ladies. And it's a real passion for me because I see so many women in that situation that I know I can help.
That's so interesting, and makes complete sense. And I'm sure women can kind of take a great amount of reassurance, really, that sometimes the way they're feeling is actually kind of biological, really. It's and the challenges that are put in place from a more masculine society. Apart from that, what other challenges or barriers do you see from the women that you work with in kind of gaining that balance and joy that you talk about?
I think there's a lot of juggling of mum and home life and business, jumping from one thing to the next, feeling like they're dipping into lots of different things, but not doing perhaps any of them as well as they'd like to, or certainly feeling that way anyway. And I know that there are lots of women that have given up their role in a job because it wasn't flexible enough for their family life, and it wasn't easy enough for them to manage all the extra stuff that they have to do and the mental load that comes with this. So there's, and then, as you go into, perhaps lots of women that I've worked with have set up their own business, but then they're in this situation perhaps where they've given up their high wage to balance their life. Now they're the lower earner. So now they're in this situation where they're trying to build a business, but they earn less money than perhaps another adult in the house. So then they end up compromising what they do. They're the one that takes the time off to look after a sick child, or there's so much social pressure to be superwoman, and we see other women coping out there with their jobs and their houses and being fabulous mums, and we can easily veer into comparing ourselves with them. And then of course we push ourselves to do the same. More likely than not, those other women are looking at us thinking exactly the same thing. But meanwhile, we're raising the bar for each other. We're all sort of, oh, she can cope, so I've got to cope. And, then, ultimately it's about then whether we replenish ourselves, whether we give ourselves that space we need to be able to perform better in all of it. If we do, we might feel guilty. If we keep on sacrificing our own needs, as I say, we're likely to lead ourselves to burnout and perhaps not be able to be there for all of those people anyway. So it's about finding that balance, finding space for ourselves, not only to satisfy our needs, but also to enjoy our lives so that we can give, to the people and to the work that we're in a sort of more natural and sort of less exhausted way.
In one of the other conversations that I've had for International Women's Day, we were discussing about women maybe not asking for help, that actually, in careers or when you're running your own business, there are networks and there are people like yourself, and there are, I guess, tools, software, all of those things that can kind of help with that. Do you think that there's generally a bit of a blocker for women asking for help?
I think it's getting better, but I think that it's definitely still there. Like I say, I think people will look around and they will think that everyone else is coping. And also, I think, my experience to some degree is that women feel like, the last thing they want to spend time or money on is themselves. So, no, I've got to look after my family, I've got to get on with my job. And like I say, then there's that irony of the fact that if they don't do that, they could end up actually not being able to be there for any of it. So yeah, I think there's that just, if I spend time on developing myself or looking after myself in this way, then that's selfish. And actually, it really isn't. It's really necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess, now whilst we're sort of talking around International Women's Day, what does it mean to you? Kind of what do you think its sort of purpose is, and why it's important for us to recognise it?
I think it's so, as you've probably gathered, I'm really passionate about raising awareness of these issues in this country, because I think it's very much sort of women's hormonal issues is still very much sort of a bit of a laugh, a bit of a joke, a bit of a sort of, she's the menopause or whatever it is. But actually they impact on us an awful lot in terms of how we work and how we compare ourselves to other people. And I was talking to a client the other day who's working on a project to empower women in Libya. Now, obviously, by comparison, we're a million miles away from the situation that women in Libya are in. But I like to think that the work of International Women's Day and some of the work that I do with clients and other women like me working with women can contribute to getting women perhaps here in the sort of capacity that they can then number one, inspire, but also perhaps get involved in helping people across the world and women across the world to have a more equal chance at everything and to have as much enjoyment out of life as everybody else, as men and as everybody, really.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I guess, we need to remind ourselves that International Women's Day is key, and the challenges that women are facing across the world are very different, although we probably have kind of those underlying things in common. And just finally, what would you like to see evolve for women to kind of have more balance and joy? What do you think needs to change?
I think there needs to be a much better understanding of that hormonal journey that a woman goes through throughout childbearing years, but also beyond that into the menopause. I think there needs to be more support and education provided for that by employers, more flexibility in working hours and practices to allow for family life and those hormonal activity peaks and troughs. and also just some celebration of the pause when we take it, rather than, there is this pressure to keep pushing on through, and we're all congratulated when we've pushed on through. But what about congratulating people when they actually recognize, hang on a minute, I need to take a break? And actually, as a result of doing that, they can be more present, and they can give more quality overall. So I think, a lot more sort of celebrating of people just being honest and saying, do you know what, I do need a break, I'm not quite all right at the moment.
Yeah, I think we've kind of come over, hopefully from the other side, but certainly a few years ago there was a lot around social media of, I've been up all night working, and then I did a 5 a.m. gym session, and there's this kind of competition to burnout, really. And I'm definitely seeing people being called out for that now, and I'm definitely seeing less of it. So hopefully that's kind of an evolution that will change. There's no medals for that, and like you said, we should be celebrating the opposite, because if we do have more balance, then think about how many other people in our lives that's actually benefiting. For most people, that's much better quality of life for their families, their colleagues, their employers, their employees, and their whole network. So yeah, I agree. Hopefully that's the way forward. Well, thank you so much, Rachel, for joining us for this very special conversation. I'm sure our audience will be fascinated with what you've had to say, and I've learned something new as well. So yeah, really appreciate that, and hopefully we'll speak to you soon.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.